Backman today was not, apart from two excellent saves in the second half, he was not on the game today as a goalkeeper. A poor clearance in one of those situations. I think it was in the second half. He kicked the ball, oh dear, and it went straight to a Spurs player. It was a very poor kick out, and he kicked it straight across to somebody, landed at a Spurs player's feet, and Spurs almost scored off of it. If it wasn't for some good defending and a blatant miss by Dele Alli, that would have been problems for Watford. That would have been curtains for Watford. But the goalkeeper not on his best today. I mean, so we established that here. Um, Definitely Backman not his day, despite the very good saves he made the second half. Lloris didn't have to do a thing today, and that's really a thing. You've got to make the goalkeeper do something in this game. You've got to make that happen. And with the forward line that Watford have, and King in the middle, who I thought was lively, but again, he didn't get enough to deal with. And Dennis on the left, I think, was really good. And obviously Saar. I mean, Saar is the person. He's the igniter of that team in the forward line. That is a really good pacey forward line that needs to be fed. And it wasn't utilized enough. The channels in this game were going to be the key against the Spurs side. I know there's reluctance to go forward a lot because in the Premier League you can get picked off at the back, but you've got a team like this with a lot of talent in it. You've got to utilize those channels more. And again, the set piece by Adam Messina, it was tame. I think we gave Spurs too much respect today. And, Spurs, they do well at home, but they are not always convincing at home. And I think Watford, we let them off the hook a bit today in some of these situations. And that's the thing I lament the most about this game. And of course, the obvious goalkeeping error. The other thing that I actually am heartened by is the defense. The defensive pairing of Troost-Ekong and Sierra Alta was very good. I thought the central defense pairing was very good. Sierra Alta on his Premier League debut, I think, acquitted himself very well indeed. And also, I think the play of Craig Cathcart at right back, he's going to obviously have that place until he doesn't. And for him, it's a case of he doesn't because he had to go off with an injury. Unfortunately, I think he picked up a hamstring pull. And I'm recording this before I know for sure exactly what the injury was. But he grabbed at his hamstring in the first half, did Cathcart. And then in the second half, he had to come off. So I think there was something there, either a knock or his hamstring. It seemed like his hamstring and he had to come off, although I do not know what the injury was. We'll find that out, I'm sure, soon enough. But for me, the defense played well enough. I think they defended the set pieces well, including the one that Son scored on, which was the only goal of the game. That Backman has got to come for that ball. I mean, he's just got to come for that ball in that situation. You've got to trust your defense. I know someone will say, well, a defender, a Tottenham player might come in and stab the ball home, but you've got to trust your defense in that situation as a goalkeeper, and you've got to come for that ball. You've got to come for it. You've got to take that chance. And Watford really in this game did not take enough chances, did not create enough chances. There were some. The finishing wasn't good. Uh, you know, I do wish that Kucha was put in the game a little earlier, but obviously his forward thinking was good. But again, too much sideways ball passing, ball movement not quite quick enough today for me. A lot of sideways and backwards passing back to the goalkeeper. That is not good enough here in the Premier League. You have got to take Tottenham on. I think Watford, in some instances, again showed Tottenham too much respect today, and you can't do that. You get hurt, you get punished, and that set piece it's cost you. We had an opportunity today to really put a scare into Spurs and actually do something with what we had promised, at least what looked like a very good starting lineup. But it didn't materialize. Tom Cleverley comes on later on. I think Sissoko had an okay debut. I got no issue with Sissoko coming in. He hadn't even really trained with the side. He'd been there for less than 2 days. But still, he still has to come into that lineup straight away. Veteran player, knows his way around Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, knows his way around Tottenham, knows his way around that team. You have to start him. And I wish that Cisco good enough to start, felt it good enough to start Danny Rose. Danny Rose has got to start that game. as well for me. Didn't happen. Didn't even get a kick of the game here, and that's a shame. But there's the manager's decision. I really do think that Danny Rose should have started. He, after what he did against Crystal Palace, he earned a start for me. And I don't know what he could have possibly done not to do that. Was he that bad in training? I mean, I can't imagine that he was. And did he get injured? Well, he was on the bench, so he wasn't injured. It certainly wasn't a serious injury. So I don't want to make excuses for Cisco here, but I think that Danny Rose should have been on the pitch. It's as simple as. There's no way around that. He's got to be on that pitch, as far as I'm concerned. But generally speaking, overall, Watford performance was better. I thought they were better organized. I thought the midfield was very good. Kuchka did lose the ball a couple of times there the second half, but made a great recovery on Harry Kane. I thought that was a very good play. And Peter Atebo, wow, I mean, he continues to be, I think, Watford's best player so far in these first three games, win or lose. I mean, Peter Atebo, I mean, win or lose, has been the most, I should say, the most consistent Watford player. I think he's been very, very comfortable in that holding position. And Gino and Scott, you've got to sign Mr. Atebo after the end of this season. So that's what I'll say about it. Tottenham, were the better side on the day. They could have had two or three more goals. We saw Dele Alli miss point blank. We saw Harry Kane miss point blank. Excellent save by Backman. But again, in this game, you've got to go forward more. You've got to be hungrier. And for me, Watford not hungry enough in this game to justify getting a goal. And the finishing's got to be more clinical. So lesson learned. Championship cobwebs, I think, are part of all three of these games. If you look at all three of these first three games now as we head into the All-Star break, Watford have conceded goals late in these games and have conceded the goals late in the first half. So in the first game, a late goal, a very sloppy challenge by Adam Messina against Aston Villa, against Bertrand Traore in the penalty box. That was a late goal conceded, a penalty kick converted by Danny Ings. I've talked ad infinitum about that in the past. Game number 2 against Brighton, the goal that was scored late in that first half. I got no problem with the earlier goal scored by Shane Duffy. That was a well defended set piece, and look, it just happens. That to me, I'm not complaining about at all. The problem I have with the Brighton game, again, apart from the way the tactics were that I talked about before, is that second goal was a very sloppy goal to give up. And so again, late in the first half, a goal conceded. That was the 41st or 42nd minute of the game. So that's two. And then today, late in the first half again, goal conceded. Now, you see, that's the thing, the championship cobwebs and our mental state in those minutes of the ends of these halves has to be stronger. The cobwebs have got to come off and the mental state has got to be switched on. Watford have got to be switched on in these games because in the Premier League, if you switch off for a single half second, you're done. And in each of those games, these first three games, as we head into the All-Star break or the international break, really, it could be an All-Star break, but Watford switched off in these games. And whether it's one player, whether it's the whole team, and usually it's been one player. In the first game, in the dying seconds of injury time, it was Adam Messina. In the second game, in the dying minutes of the first half, it was Troost Kong, too long on the ball, passing, and then Neil Maupay grabs it and smashes it in the back of the net, right, in the Brighton game. And then today, it was the goalkeeper, just switched off completely. Defense was fine. It was the goalkeeper switching off in the 42nd minute. So again, Watford are going to have to work on their mentality in the closing stages of these games, whether it's the first half closing stages or in the second half closing stages. Watford's mentality and switching on has got to be a lot better through the entire game, especially in the late moments of both halves of the games, because that has really cost them in these first three games. If you're looking at the overall picture of the first three games, that's what we have seen and that's what's happened here. So really, it's interesting also, one other thing, that Watford have scored or conceded in the 41st or 42nd minute of every one of these first three games. I mean, that's just really strange to me. It's an odd stat. It maybe means absolutely nothing, but it's very telling because the Saar scored in the 31st minute of the Villa game. In the Brighton game, it was Neil Mope scoring in the 41st or 42nd minute of that game. And then today, Son in the 42nd minute of the game. I mean, that is about mentality to me, especially those last two games. It's about being switched on and not taking a possession off, not taking a minute off, not taking a second off. That's what the Premier League is. You can do that in the Championship and perhaps get away with it. But in the Premier League, more often than not, you are going to get punished if you take a second off in these games. So Watford now have 2 weeks to look at the game, to look at the first three games. I would ask any Watford fan, what do you think so far? I mean, it's three games, but what do you think? I mean, as I've said before, the assessments on this team really can't be made in any real educated way until we've got to game 8, 9, and 10, till we get to those games and we get to see what Watford are really about. Now, Watford will have a few more days here in the transfer deadline window to do something, and it's obviously got to be defensively. Watford now have to get defenders in here now. That has got to be the focus here, and I'm sure, and I certainly hope that Gino and Scott and the board do what they have to do to get some defenders in. They need defensive reinforcements, especially now. Cathcart out injured. I don't know how long he'll be out for. Hope it's not very long. The international break has come at the right time in that perspective. So Cathcart, whatever it is, he can at least get fitness back and recover and get healthy and be ready to play against Wolves, if that should be. Femenia wasn't even named to the squad today, so I don't know what that was about. But maybe he's not game ready. I don't know. I mean, he played in the game against Crystal Palace. So why he was left out of the squad altogether, to me, is mystifying. Unless he's injured. I mean, and I did not pick up on the injury. So excuse me if I didn't get that right, because I know there were some players that weren't available. So if I've missed Femenia somehow, then I pulled up my hand and apologize for that. But I had not heard that Femenia was injured, so I don't know what the story was there. But the point is that defensive reinforcements now are the order of the day, and that's what Watford have to concentrate on. And also their mentality closing out these halves of games. Um, these first halves of games, especially away from home, critical. You've got to keep your eye on the ball. They've defended so well throughout that first half today. It's a shame that they were undone by their goalkeeper. And that really was the story here. And not enough aggressiveness going forward. Those two things are really the big reasons why we have Tottenham Hotspur 1, Watford 0. It's on to the international break now. And Watford will hopefully get those championship cobwebs out of the system. It usually takes 3 or 4 games for any newly promoted team to adjust to the pace of the Premier League and to life in it. And Watford, I think, now have had their education. Now it's time to kick on after the international break.